Let's talk about the main character from Victorious, Tori Vega. When you think of Victorious, which character is your favorite? Is it Jade? Or Andre perhaps? Or is it the main character, Tori? Well, probably not Tori. I posted some polls about how people felt about Tori on the channel, as well as on the Victorious subreddit. And with close to 2,000 votes, around 9% of people answered that Tori was their favorite character from Victorious. And actually, the number of people that said Tori was the worst character was basically equal to the number of people that said she was their favorite. So why is this? Let's continue. Around 80% of people said that Tori was either good or okay. So yes, the title of the video is a little misleading, but it's not far off. The most accurate title might have been, "Few people love Tori." But why everyone hates Tori, it raises some sort of a reaction, right? The 8% of the people who really dislike her just want to hear their opinion justified, while the 8% who adore Tori are here out of outrage. But the other 80%, well, I don't know, out of interest. I will say straight away, I'm one of the 80%. But let's talk about it. Why is the character with the most screen time the main character, not your favorite? Probably. Tori, from the start, way before the show aired, was planned to be the star of the show, the centerpiece. The show was going to be built around her. The idea for the show Victorious actually came from Victoria Justice sharing with Dan Schneider that she had gone to a performing arts middle school, and so Victorious was born. Victoria Justice also has many deals in place regarding her future with the network and with music. In summation, the plan was always to have her be in focus. So, how do you make your centerpiece A, not just likable, but also lovable, and B, how do you make the characters around her work? Well, before we answer these questions, let's try to understand why Tori isn't almost anyone's favorite character. I'll go through some of the fandom's most common reasons. The most common one I see is that she's undeserving of always being in the spotlight, and that the other members of the group were more talented. For almost all the performances, Tori is in the front, singing the main vocal, whereas Andre, Jade, and Kat will be supporting the performance. A common thing I see people say is that it's simply quote-unquote annoying that despite her being less talented, she's always leading. Another common reason to dislike Tori amongst fans are some of her actions against her closest friends, like kissing Kat's boyfriend or Jade's, or sabotaging others' achievements, like for example when she stole the crowd from Jade's big night for her own prom. She has a rare habit of sacrificing her own friends' trust for her own gain. In the 80% I mentioned earlier, the ones who either like Tori's character or are fairly neutral about her, a common thing I see is that they perceive Tori as quote-unquote normal, or a more negative term sometimes is that she's a bland character. It would make sense that one's favorite thing, or character in this case, most of the time wouldn't be labeled as normal or bland. The third and final reason I'll talk about today is maybe perhaps Tori's lack of character growth throughout the show. Tori arguably goes through more growth in the first 2 episodes of Victorious than she does for the entirety of the rest of the show. Tori is a very static character, and static characters can work great as the main character, but they have to be written just right, with the right complementary characters. Tori's lack of change and development resulted in her being too consistent, and therefore characters that were changing and growing around Tori can become more interesting. One of the more interesting dilemmas in the show for Tori was when she needed to change for the record label in Tori Goes Platinum. She was forced to become more interesting. Ironically. But now that we know a little bit more about why Tori is not everyone's favorite, let's take a look at those questions again. How do you make your centerpiece character A, not just likable but lovable, and B, how do you make the characters around her work? Let's answer these questions. How do we make Tori everyone's favorite? Well, we don't even need to look too far from the source to answer this. This is not the first time Dan has fully focused on the main character. In fact, the main character is almost always in the title of the show. Let's look at some examples of this and compare them to Tori. One that is quite similar to Tori is Zoe from Zoe 101. Both of them even started in a new school in the first episode, needing to find their place. She was also a fairly static character with a leading nature, always trying to help her friends, etc. But again, she was normal, static, and developed maybe just slightly more than Tori during the course of the show. Zoe, however, I would say was a little more like the Tori when compared to the rest of the characters, more around 20% rather than below 10%. To prove that point, I did a poll as well on the channel, just in case. The reason I would say Zoe worked just a little better was because we got to see her interact with her friends in a more natural way, and we got to see her love story with Chase evolve slowly over time, so the characters around Zoe actually elevated her. They needed her. Another example we could look at, a main character which potentially is actually the favorite from her own show, is Carly from iCarly. Again, a static character, but she just works. Unlike Zoe and Tori, Carly is the glue of the other characters in her show. Sam is her best friend, Freddie is the boy next door with a crush on her, Spencer is her brother, and Gibby is Gibby. You also have the back and forth Zoe 101-esque love arc between her and Freddie, which worked so well in Zoe 101. Carly is modest about her successes in the best way. She's also funny, and she's quirky. She has her flaws, but she'll never betray her friends. Carly works. So how do you take those relatively more successful main characters to understand why Tori doesn't work quite as well? It's actually really simple. If Tori wasn't at Hollywood Arts, in that friend group, it wouldn't be the end of the show. Tori doesn't have close enough of a connection with the other characters on the show. I would argue that Kat and Jade, or Jade and Beck, or Robbie and Kat all have stronger connections than Tori does with anyone else. Maybe perhaps aside from Andre, which brings me to another really interesting point actually. I feel that Dan didn't want to go back and forth with another love arc with his main character again, and that's fine, but perhaps make Andre and Tori authentic besties then. Give us interactions we can build on. We need to have the characters around Tori elevate her, not just in the background. So, in summation, to me, Tori feels a little disconnected from the rest of the characters on the show, and the reason we might enjoy the other characters more is because they interact with each other in a more authentic way. We can see the bond and the history. Because of that, I feel that Tori doesn't inspire those heartwarming moments that we might have for Zoe or Carly in their own respective shows. Now, as my closer, I want to say again, I am in those 80% that like Tori. The intention of this video is not to bash Tori. It's just an exploration. Just my 2 cents on why she probably isn't your favorite. With that being said, I want to hear your thoughts. I'm really eager to hear what you guys will have to say in the comments below. And above all else, thank you for watching the Third Win channel. I'll see you guys tomorrow with another daily video.